Okay, we're dealing with CPLR 328, which I found very interesting. It was one of those questions and answers that I didn't quite get, and I had to kind of like sit with a little bit, but let's just go at it. I also tried finding case law, could not find any case law examples, so I'm just going to wing it for this one. In connection with a proceeding in a tribunal outside the state of New York, court may order service of any document upon any person who is domiciled or can be found within the state. This order may be issued by A, any New York court, B, only the Supreme Court, C, only a county court, D, either the Supreme Court or a county court, and E, any New York court which would have jurisdiction if the action was brought in New York. I thought it was E, but it wasn't. It was D, either the Supreme Court or a county court. Both of those are superior courts, by the way. Let's look at the question. So it's saying in connection with a proceeding in a tribunal outside the state. Okay, so they're looking for a connection. This tribunal is adjudicating it. A matter outside of New York State, and they're looking for a connection to that proceeding. Okay, a New York court may order service of any document upon any person who is domiciled. So they're saying that that New York court may order service for any document upon a person who is domiciled. In other words, they're looking to see if there's a connection with that case that's going on that the tribunal is adjudicating outside of the state. They're looking to see if a person who is domiciled, in other words, is under New York state jurisdiction, lives in New York, or does business in New York, or can be found within the state. Then it's saying this order may be issued by. So it's talking about an order that's issued by a court, and they're asking you what type of court would that tribunal be reaching out to get that connection to their case from a person who's domiciled in New York State. And the courts that they would be reaching out to for the order would be either the Supreme Court or a county court. Okay. So that was question 86. Let's look at the explanation, which is CPLR 328A provides that the Supreme Court or a county court may, upon application, right, that would be the order, or in response to letters rogatory, okay, which means a request by a lawful court of another jurisdiction, that's a tribunal, that a court assists, in other words, that the New York court assists as necessary in the taking of testimony of an individual, that's that domiciled person, order service of any document upon any person domiciled or found in New York. Okay, so I read that about 3 times, and I'm like, this seems like one of those things that I want to investigate because I'm not quite understanding this. So let's look at the actual CPLR. And that was referencing 328A. So 328 is assistance to tribunals and litigants outside the state. So we have these Supreme Courts and county courts helping these tribunals. Here's the definition of a tribunal. A tribunal is a specialized judicial body or court of justice that decides disputes in a specific area of law. Tribunal judges and members hear a wide range of cases such as tax, employment, immigration, and asylum. And here's the quick definition. A tribunal is an adjudicatory body or court of justice. So it's basically another type of court. They deal with specialized things. Tribunals, immigration, asylum. Tribunal decisions are often binding, and the remedies that tribunals can order may be limited by their legislation. Tribunals generally have many of the features of courts, such as independence from the executive government, Public hearings, a duty to decide disputes according to law, and a duty to give reasons for decisions. There is usually a right of appeal on a question of law to a court such as a district court or the Supreme Court. Okay, so we know what the definition is. Let's go back to what we were reading. So it's an adjudicatory body, right? It's basically another court, So assistance to tribunals or litigants outside the state. So New York State Court, Supreme and County are assisting as with any connection to the cases that these tribunals are working on. And this is specifically referencing A, which is pursuant to court order. So A is pursuant to court order, B is without court order, and C is effect. So this is basically saying that they can get this assistance either with a court order to the Supreme or County Court or without a court order. So this is very interesting, but we're going to start with the 328A because that's the reference for this question. Upon application by any interested person or in response to letters rogatory issued by a tribunal outside the state, the Supreme Court or a county court of the state may order service upon any person who is domiciled, lives or under the jurisdiction in New York State, or can be found within the state of any document issued in connection with a proceeding in a tribunal outside the state. So they're trying to get that connecting piece for their case. The tribunal needs that connecting piece, and it's by someone who's domiciled in New York State, which is why they're reaching out to the Supreme and County Court for that order to do so. The order shall direct the manner of service. So it's going to say how they're going to obtain this document. So that's A, that's pursuant to a court order. But as we can see in B, without a court order. So it looks like that tribunal can also get this connective piece, either through the court with an order or without a court order. So without a court order, it says service in connection with a proceeding in a tribunal outside the state may be made within the state without an order of court. Very interesting. C is effect. Services under this rule does not of itself require the recognition or enforcement of an order, judgment, or decree rendered outside the state. And so there you have it. So this tribunal who's dealing with this case, they can get help even though they're outside New York State. If someone that's domiciled or under jurisdiction lives and is under the jurisdiction of New York State, they can reach out for an order to obtain that connective documentation, or they can just do it without the court order as well. And that's 328. Again, assistance to tribunals and litigants outside the state.